Fabulous. Can people hear me at the back? I tend to talk really loud, so if I start to blast your eardrums or go way too fast, you're welcome to tell me that too. I am absolutely honored to have an opportunity to talk to you today. I have a few staff in the audience who will probably vouch for the fact that PRT has become a fairly consuming passion of mine in the last several years. It's the most fun I've had at work in many, many, many years. I don't like to count the number of years I've been working with families and children with autism anymore. But I'll tell you that the first kids that I met with autism ranged from 5 to 10 years old, and that was in 1977. So you may do the math. People say, how in the world are you still doing this after all this time? It's because the field has changed. We know a lot more than we did when I started out. I do things differently, but I do lots of things the same, and it's a privilege to have the opportunity to talk to parents. So thanks, Robin and Ted, for inviting me. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them as we go forward, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about this journey that's PRT that I've been on. So the next, I have the slide. Where do I point it? Oh, there we go. So what is PRT? From its very roots, PRT is good science, and that's what sold me on it. The Canadian Pediatric Society published a paper in 2011 that talked about appropriate early intervention for children on the spectrum. And they talked about a study that started in 1987 and 200 studies since. And PRT and other behavioral-based treatments are among the things that the Canadian Pediatric Society recommends. They also recommend something else that's critical and nobody ever talks about, and that's that families should be involved in service provision. And there should be ongoing program evaluation. And so as I talk about what we've done with PRT in early intervention in York Region, you'll get to hear some of those parts. And not just the Canadians. In 2011, in the US of A also, the National Autism Center printed a report in 2009 addressing the need for evidence-based practice for autism spectrum disorders, and all of the interventions that they recommend are behavioral-based, using antecedents, behavioral change, joint attention, naturalistic teaching, which is something I'm going to tell you about. So, it's also applied behavior analysis. You heard Dr. A talk your first presentation today about behavior. All applied behavior analysis is good science. PRT takes ABA and makes it very much play-based and very much fun. So I looked this morning for a quote for you about why treating children with autism should be fun. And I printed it, and I think that I left the paper on the printer. But there are about 200 quotes about the importance of children to be engaged in what they're doing. All children learn best when they're engaged and having fun, and that's what we do with PRT. And you will see video at the end if I talk fast enough. Oh, I went backwards. There we go. So I'm not going to spend a great deal of time on the theory or the science of this, but pivotal response uses the same ABCs as any other behavioral intervention. A for antecedent, B for behavior, C for consequence. And in PRT, it's dead simple. The antecedent is that you have what that child wants, and you structure the play so that you are in control for a brief moment. You provide a prompt to the child. The behavior in question is any intentional vocalization. Doesn't need to be a word. Doesn't need even to be anything resembling a word. You'll see in the video of Anthony that where we started with Anthony was just a little, and that was what we reinforced. The reinforcement is the child gets that thing that you have control of, and everybody goes crazy, and then you play and you play and you play and you play and you play, and then again, you take control for a little moment, you provide the opportunity by making a prompt, you wait until you get an intentional vocalization, and then you party again, and you play again for a long, long time. And believe me, it makes you laugh. It makes the child laugh. It's a great deal of fun. There's a lot of things about the consequence. We have to be quick, because when children are very little and learning and working very hard at vocalizing with us, we have to be really quick so we know that, so they know exactly what they did to get their toys back. And it has to be natural and functional. Those children that I started working with in 1977, who are now like 40 or something, we did discrete trial training, which meant they sat across the table. Whatever skill we were teaching, whatever vocabulary we were working on, tie your shoes, making lunch, going swimming, academic work, we always reinforced the appropriate behavior, but usually it was something edible. That's where I learned to like Marmite, which makes me shudder, but all the children loved it because the teacher was from Australia. So we reinforced immediately, and you can change children's behavior with discrete trial. It hasn't been around for all this time if it didn't work. The difference between discrete trial training, where children are sitting across the table or being drilled in the same thing over and over again, is that PRT is fun and PRT is natural, because the children choose what it is that they want to work on and how they are going to get it. How did we get here? At early intervention services now, we see about 2,000 children a year, and about 30 or 40% of those children either have an autism spectrum disorder or we suspect they do, and they're on the wait list for an assessment. The things that we were doing with other children with special needs were not necessarily working so well. Our staff were struggling, wanting the best tools, and of course, because all of our children are very young, many of them were not speaking. So we looked long and hard for a recipe book, a curriculum that we could use for our children with autism. And when we found PRT, we thought we'd sort of hit the jackpot. So what we did was we invited the founders of PRT from the Cable Institute at the University of California to come up and train all of our staff. We have about 65 frontline staff. We added some speech pathologists. We added some of the staff from the developmental assessment clinic. And they gave us 2 days of orientation. They showed slides, they showed video, they gave us a signed reading to do. We worked really hard, and then we had to all write an exam, and the pass mark was 80%, and guess what? If you didn't pass, you got to do it again. Lauren. Everybody passed in the end, which meant the training was effective, and we all did our homework. I only say that as a dear friend. But so we all got that. We all got a basic orientation to PRT. And we had a very small group of about 10 staff who decided they wanted to do something more. They wanted to get some additional certification in PRT. So they had to work really hard at videotaping themselves, working with children, and then we send those videos to California, and California says, yes, you're doing this right, yes, you're doing this right, oops, not quite so much. And they send the video back and you try again. So we continue to work on that. About half of our team have obtained their certification and half of them are continuing to work on it. And then I had a magnificent opportunity. I got a telephone call from Hospital for Sick Children, Autism Research Unit, that said, we have people coming to do intensive training in PRT. Would you like to come? And I said, well, of course I would. And then they said, think before you say yes. The first day is an orientation, and that'll be okay. But then you're going to spend 4 days working with families and having your videotapes critiqued. And I said, oh, all right, maybe not so much. Maybe I'll send one of my staff. They'll be good at this. And they said, no, we think you should come. So I talked to my colleagues. I talked to my boss. And of course, they needed a decision in like 5 minutes. And then one of my staff said, I think I have a family that would like to do this. And I said, oh, all right, I'll go. I shook in my boots. I was scared to death. It's been a long time since I'd done that kind of intensive clinical work. And I was going to have experts look at my videotapes. It was horrendous. And then I met Robin and Ted and their son Anthony, who you will see on videotape, and it was all good. Ted and I spent 4 days together in a little tiny room at Hospital for Sick Kids, having trainers look at our videotape. We both were videotaped working with Anthony and a number of other families. And I see Luca's dad here too. Luca or Lucas? Lucas. Lucas's dad is here. He was part of our small group too. And what I learned in those 4 days changed everything about how I understand applied behavior analysis, what I do with applied behavior analysis, and were the seeds of this parent coaching group. But that wasn't enough. The people from Arizona that came to do this intensive training came back. And guess what? I had to go again. I had to do another set of home visits at Ted and Robin's house. Have a lot of fun with Anthony, who made a great deal of progress in those second days. So then I went to my boss and said, okay, this is a really good thing. We need to figure out how to do this at early intervention services. I don't know how we can do it, but we need to do this somehow. I said, I think I need to go to Arizona to visit the people who did the training and see this on the ground in action. And much to my surprise, my boss said, okay, get a cheap flight, stay in a cheap hotel, but you can go. So I went. And what I saw in Arizona was 4 different programs. I saw an intensive in-house coaching program where families came and lived at the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center. I saw a program where they went out into the community, the coaches, and worked with families for 2 hours once a week. I saw a program where families came in twice a week for a few hours, and I saw clinical supervision. And on the plane, on the way home, I got out my notebook and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I talked to my colleague who went with me, and I said, I have an idea. I think we can do this. One of the pieces that I saw at SARC was a program called Jumpstart, where they had families come in groups twice a week. The families got some education, some academic overview of what behavior was and what PRT could be. And then the families went into a room with a coach and got some individual coaching on how to encourage their child to speak using PRT. At Early Intervention Services, we've always believed in coaching parents. Parents are the ones who live with these children. We go in for our short visits. We don't live with you. Sometimes you ask us. We usually say no. Parents are the ones who have the opportunity to interact with their child all day, every day. And the more skills that we can give you to work with your children, the better. So that's always been our focus. It's also been a focus of the work at the York Region Preschool Speech and Language Program. And we work very closely together because we share a lot of the clients. As one of the things that I've done at Early Intervention, I've co-facilitated some workshops using the Hannon principles, the More Than Words program that some of you may know, or the Talkability program that some of you may know. And those programs also combine parents learning together in a group and then individual sessions of coaching. And I said there's got to be a way to put these 2 things together and do PRT in this way. We also had a group at Early Intervention Services to help families with children who don't eat well, particularly our picky eaters, and that again used the same model of parents coming together in a group to learn and then an opportunity to receive individual coaching. So you have all the benefits of group work for parents, which I am a firm believer in. After all these years, I can't tell you things that other parents can tell you. I don't live this. I know a lot about this, but I don't live this. Other parents that live this are the ones that can support you in your journey. Plus, we have the opportunity for individual coaching sessions. Now, we don't have a lot of resources. I have 8 staff, that are certified in PRT on my PRT team, and there's me, and there's, what did I say, some 400 or 500 families. So I said, okay, the math doesn't work here. We have to figure out a way to do this. So we designed a group that's very short term, 6 weeks. You have to come twice in those 6 weeks. Come once at night, just the parents, and we give you information. And then you come back on a Friday morning for an hour, 6 weeks, and we give you some coaching and teach you the skills that are going to help your children begin to talk. We had to pick which families we would work with, and because of some funding issues, and because I'm a little bit of a chicken, we made a very narrow subgroup to run our pilot. We wanted all children who were under 3 and children who were not speaking. Not that PRT cannot be used to teach any child or any adult almost anything. But the group that we were really struggling with was the really little ones who weren't talking. I had the opportunity to attend a conference probably 5 years ago where I heard a statistic that scared the bejesus out of me. A child at 18 months who is not meeting their speech and language milestones, even with the very best intervention, only has a 50% chance of catching up. That really scared me. So 50% of the children with good intervention will do fine, but there's another 50% who even with the best intervention will not catch up. And so I said, okay, if they're not talking and they're 3, this is a long time past 18 months, we had best get to work pretty darn quick. So we started our first pilot group with 8 families because I had 8 coaches. 8 and 8 seemed to make sense to me. Of those 8 families, there were 8 children, and they were all little. Some of them had a few single words they could use in imitation, but they were not using them functionally. Some were diagnosed, some were not. We suspected the ones that were not diagnosed all had social communication disorders. What did we do? 6 evenings, parent education, 6 coaching sessions on Friday mornings. And here's the kicker. This is the other thing I learned at Arizona, is that I needed to provide a great deal of support to the team that was doing this. We needed an opportunity every week to talk about the children, what they had done, how well they had done, what families needed help with, what skills people had mastered, and what skills they hadn't. So my staff are giving me a day and a little bit every single week, but that's what makes this model work. The question was where. Space is always an issue. We happen to have some office space that had lots of treatment rooms and a big meeting room for parents. How? You've already heard about my team. I am the supervisor. We had consultation from the York Regional Preschool Speech and Language Program. And we had skill sets. This is what I borrowed, begged, stole from Arizona. It's a set of PRT broken down into 3 skill sets. The coaches all helped with the parent ed presentations, although I must say I am the presentation hog. I tell them it's lovely if you want to come out on Thursday night, but if you never show up, it doesn't matter because I could talk all night. It's not an issue. They usually come anyway. We take data because I'm a big believer in science, and you need to make your decisions in PRT based on data. The coaches also support each other. So there's 2 coaches in a room with a family. One is taking data and reporting, the other one is coaching, and then they trade for the second session. The supervisor does the organizing, wrote the curriculum, records data when nobody else is there. I usually don't have to go for coffee, but I'm sure they'd like it if I did. The skill sets we broke down into 3 big target areas. And we taught them in this manner. So, let me check and make sure I put the details in. I guess I did. So we meet for 6 weeks, and there are some graduates in the room, which is really nice. So maybe they'll have something to say after. We do an orientation, and we talk about the first skill set the very first night, because the very next day you need to be working with your child. We put in a whole evening on disruptive behavior because guess what happens when you start to ask a child to do something different, to do something new, that's a little bit difficult. What do you imagine? Tantrums, exactly. Lots of them. So we talk about disruptive behavior. We used to talk about that at the end of the program. Now we talk about it at the beginning because there certainly can be difficult behaviors to deal with when you change the world on a small child who's not talking. We have an opportunity for review, and at the end of our sessions, we often have a panel with graduate parents that may have been in other groups coming back to talk about their experience. Some parents that were in our initial group at Hospital for Sick Kids, a parent who's been through a program in Nova Scotia that uses PRT. So we try and organize an evening that will allow for that. So here are the skills. This is the crux of the matter, guys, and none of it is difficult. And the same way you can go home tonight and throw out the wheat and the gluten and the toxic chemicals, you can go home tonight and try some of this stuff because it's not tricky. The most important thing to do is to figure out what it is that your child wants. Follow their lead. What are they playing with? What part of a toy are they interested in? What activity do they really like and do they want? We're discovering the child's motivation. Sometimes it's really specific. Sometimes it's the noise that the toy makes. Sometimes it's the lifting them up to do a spin around game. Sometimes it's the words to a song. Sometimes it's a specific car that goes down the car ramp. That's the detective work. That's the detective work that happens first. You need to know what it is that motivates this child. And then, and here was the hard part of Anthony. Where did Ted go? Shared control. How is it that you, the big bad parent, is going to take a little bit of control of that toy or that activity that means the world to your child? And when we started with Anthony, if we even looked like we were going to take control of a toy, we had an impressive tantrum. So that takes a lot of work to figure out how you can just a little bit interfere with that child's play so that you have control. You can take an opportunity to provide a prompt. And then the other this is the difficult word, contingency. This is a behavior word. In very simple terms, it's say what you mean and mean what you say. So if I have this toy, and I've given you a prompt, and I'm expecting you to give me a directed, intentional vocalization to get it back, you don't give me a directed, intentional vocalization, you don't get it back. And that's when you have a tantrum. Maybe. Not all the time. What would you say, Claire? We've had, out of 24 kids, we've had maybe 3 where we had really significant behavioral issues that needed some extra attention. If you're good, right? If you figured it out, how to intervene just a little bit without causing a tantrum, then you're well on your way. Skill set number 2, get the child's attention. It's sometimes very tricky because we don't insist on eye contact. Child just has to be looking in the general direction, looking like they might want that toy being present with you in the room. If they're in the middle of a tantrum, you don't have their attention. So you don't offer an opportunity in the middle of a tantrum. Prompting is not hard, you just say the word. Say the word for whatever it is that you have control of that child wants. And we use the real word. We use the real word. One of the secrets is most of the time you want to name the object for what it is. We don't use words like help or more or open or shut in the beginning because we want children to learn the names of things. You say whatever the word is very calmly and very clearly, and then you wait. And any attempt that the child might make to imitate that word is immediately reinforced, and that's the party time when you celebrate. Recasting means you just say the word again, so that the child has another opportunity to hear what the name of that thing is. This is the 3rd skill set, and we don't spend a lot of time here because the first 2 are difficult enough. and often take us our 6 weeks. We talk again about shared control. We talk a lot about how in the beginning, for children who are not talking, any word is a brand new task. Any word is a brand new task, and you can't make somebody work at their peak of effort 100% of the time. That's not fair. And guess what? It's also not fun. So you ask for the word 1 time out of every 7, every 8, every 10. In between, you just play. And when I say just play, I'm being quite facetious, because play is how children learn. And a child who's engaged is a child who's going to learn. Task variation means you just play with the same toy or with the same activity in a bunch of different ways so that nobody gets bored. Parent coaching happens in real time. We've introduced parents to the skills the night before. They come in on Friday morning and we say, okay, have at it, go play. And as they are playing, we will help them. Okay, now's the time to prompt. Now's the time to wait. Yes, that was a good enough response. Please give the child the toy right away. We take a video so that we can review that as a group later, and we show those videos the next week in class, so the parents then have the opportunity to see each other doing things well. Did we ever show you doing something that you weren't doing well? No. No. Nadia, we never showed video of you doing things bad. We show video of you doing things well, so that other parents have an opportunity to learn. But being videotaped is a scary proposition. I'm not really looking at the camera over there, but I know it's there. There's a little trembling going on in my feet, but not so much. So you're, as a parent, on that first Friday morning, you're trying to learn and implement a new skill set with your child in a strange room with 2 new people and a video camera. It's difficult, but every single one of our families has been successful, extremely successful. We try and make our coaching collaborative, which means that we ask you, how well do you think that went? What do you think you might have done differently? What are your strengths today? Where are you struggling? What do you want to work on next week? It always is based on what went well, which is the science of behavior. You reinforce the things that someone is doing right, they will do those things again. We call attention to the things you're doing well. Hopefully you perceive that as reinforcing. Everybody likes to be praised. And then you will do those things again and more. We also have cheat sheets. We post on the wall the skills you should be working on. We give you copies to take home. We laminate them so you can put them on the fridge so you can practice at home too. We use lots of toys. This is the fun part, going shopping. We purchase toys that are cause and effect. We purchase toys that have lots of parts so that the child can have 5 of the balls that go down and you have 1, and that's the one they need to ask for in their play. We use bubbles, we use musical things, but what we learned is that for almost all of the children, the most reinforcing activity is playing with you, playing with their parents. Singing songs together, reading books together, jumping up and down, spinning around, playing with light switches, playing with a door stopper on the floor, watching Kathy Saul fall down on the trampoline and make a big guffaw noise. You'll see that too. It was more fun for Anthony than any of the toys, and guess what? When it was me falling down on the trampoline, I wasn't taking anything away from him. I am obviously in complete control, well, most of the time, of whether I shall fall down on my behind and make a big noise or not. I'm not taking it from him. He has to request for me to do it, but I'm not taking anything away from him. And that was the secret of shared control with Anthony, 100% on all the time. So we meet in supervision weekly for 2 hours. We look at the videos. We talk about what went well in parent ed so that we know how to adjust our schedule for the next week. What parents told us was the best thing that they learned and they liked was they learned how to be contingent, so they started to use the language. They learned a new way to interact with their child. They learned about shared control. They learned about teaching within a natural environment and to follow their child's lead. Their children said more words, said new words, said words for the first time. They really liked it when their children reached their goals. For one of our children, we got a spontaneous sentence. Parents realized they weren't alone. These are really little children, most of them under 3. For parents coming to our PRT group, it was sometimes the first time those parents had been together in a group, and they may never have met before another parent with a child on the autism spectrum. The children learned and enjoyed playing. They learned to play longer with toys, because as they played and were reinforced for playing and using spontaneous or imitated words as they played, they stayed longer with those toys. Almost every family said their child learned to make a verbal request. They told us some things we should have changed. For the most part, what they said is we should have done more. We should have had more sessions. The sessions should have been longer. They should have been able to come back. They would like to come back. We had one parent actually say that every single family we worked with should have an opportunity to come to that group. Successes and challenges. All of the parents improved in most of those skills. And we're talking 6 weeks, people. We're not talking years, we're talking 6 weeks. All the parents reported to us that they were more comfortable playing with their children and knowing how to follow their child's lead. Every single one of these children made progress. Every single one. We've run this group 3 times now. We're on our way to our 4th. We've had 25 families and 26 children because we had a set of twins. Every single one of those children made progress. If they had nothing to start with, they learned to make sounds to get what they wanted. Some children now have vocabularies of many words. Some children that were able to imitate a word or two once or twice in their life are now using lots of words spontaneously. Negative behaviors decreased for every single one of the families. My staff learned to be flexible, resourceful, and extremely energetic. We had technology challenges. We have cameras that don't want to hold a charge all morning. We have a server at the region that doesn't have enough room to hold all the videos we upload. And we don't have enough time. It takes a lot of time to implement this program, but we don't have a lot of it. So what are we going to do next? We're planning for group 4. It starts in about 2 weeks, I think. I hope we're ready. Group 5 next September. We continue to think about what's the best location. We continue to think about what's the best target group. We didn't arbitrarily. We very thoughtfully chose a group of very young children who were nonverbal. PRT, the science of knowing what motivates somebody, having a target behavior, and reinforcing that target behavior can be used to teach almost anybody, almost anything. So there are lots of children older than 36 months who are not yet talking. We'd like to figure out how to involve them in a group. Typically when children are over 36 months and not talking, it's a little bit harder to get them started, and we see more than negative behaviors. So we have to think about that. We have to think about children who may or may not be under or over 36 months who are using some language, perhaps an imitation. Perhaps they're able to tell you whole chapters and words from videos or DVDs, but are not using language functionally. We have to think about how we might have a group for them. And we're always challenged with staffing. Staff leave for other jobs, other assignments, maternity leaves, can you imagine? So I'm challenged with trying to have a group of staff that is consistent. So Robin, do you have the videos back?
Yeah.
All right.
What do you want?
Let's look at Nathan first. He's the little one. It should. Put it in the middle. Yep. This is where all presenters cross their fingers and pray like so. Oh, there we are. Oh, and this is always my problem. So down there, the second one on the left. Yeah, no, on the left. Yeah. Nathan was about 3 at this time, who had no words in English. Fast forward again. Even more. The sequence that I want. Yeah. Okay, do you want to turn it off? Turn it off? Yeah. So, one of the things that was really interesting about Nathan is that he had no words in English or Korean. He was very sociable and very interested in playing. And what I learned from him was that he was very interested in this process and very participative. And the funniest things were reinforcing to him. We had 4 sessions together. This is session 3. The clip that I can't find, what he really wanted was a set of plastic spoons that were in different colors. And he would very nicely request for those spoons. He gave me an approximation of that word spoon. I would pretend to eat with the spoons and make a ridiculous noise. He would say spoon, get the spoon, he would line them up, and then we would do it all over again. It, to me, was not particularly fun. To him, was very, very, very fun. We used some food. He would request for cherry tomatoes, but he did not wish to eat the cherry tomatoes. He wished for his mother to eat the cherry tomatoes. So that was fun. We also played with water outside in the backyard because it was very hot that summer. And he would request for the water, and I would hand him a bucket of water, and he would dump it back into the pool, except for the time he missed, and it dumped it all over me. So that part was very fun because it was a very hot day. When we finished with PRT with Nathan, he had about 25 to 30 words that he would say in imitation that were particularly lousy approximations. It seemed like there was some apraxia going on for him. He was really, never did get a sound out of him for moo, never got a buh for bubbles. All those really early sounds that most kids make first, the ms and the buzz and the puzz, he didn't have any of them. He had a back here guh for cookie. And I don't even remember what he did for spoon, but spoon was not spoon. So the speech pathologist that saw him next after me introduced him to pictures, and he learned to request using pictures. And after about 6 months, didn't need the pictures anymore, and now he's talking in sentences. So I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know if the apraxia got better all by itself, or whether his family did other things that may have helped him. I think it probably was complicated by the fact that the language he heard at home was Korean and not English, and some of the sound structures in Korean don't really bear any resemblance to English. But we had 4 weeks together, and that was enough to get him started. His mom carried on after I finished with him. Mr. Anthony. And this, it doesn't matter, they're both the same. This is the techno wizardry of Mr. Ted that we're gonna see here. You'll be so impressed. The way this comes up. Oh, what's that? Okay. It's making a very strange clicking noise. There, that's what I want to hear. So where it says seeds, there should be a little arrow. Press on seeds. And then that arrow that goes this way. This one? Yeah. And then 2906, this was our last day together. So for response. Oh, there, that looks better. We're getting there. Yeah, I didn't like that being fast forwarded. Is this the beginning of the clip again?
No, this is towards the end.
Okay.
Daddy, come. Come, Daddy. I got home, tell me she's on.
No, I think this is the beginning again. How many minutes are we at?
Oh God, yes.
20. Go back to 16. Oh, sure. That'll probably kill it again. 18. There.
This is it.
Yeah. Will you pause it for a second? So what did you see there? Yeah?
You went along with his interest. He switched.
Yes? Absolutely followed his interest. What did you see when Nathan came running down the hallway and was standing in front of me? What was he doing? He was motioning for me to jump, absolutely. What was he doing with his voice? With laughing. What did I wait for? I waited for an intentional, directed sound. Laughing wasn't going to get it. He had his leg going. I think he really knew what he wanted. He really wanted me to jump. Laughing wouldn't work. Moving his leg up and down didn't work. I was waiting for that sound. And when I got that sound and jumped and fell down, he went tearing off down the kitchen, touched the cupboard, came back, and tried it all over again. So I have to be really, really careful that I'm not reinforcing the laughing. I'm not reinforcing the gesture or the leg going crazy. I was reinforcing the sound. Who was having fun here? Both of us, absolutely. It truly was hysterical. What did Anthony learn? Absolutely. If he wants that ridiculous spectacle of Kathy Saul falling on her butt on his trampoline in his kitchen, he has to ask. Did it work?
Yeah.
Absolutely, 100%. The testimony is here. Robin and Ted will tell you that Anthony is now using language. At that point in time, we had occasional fill-in-the-blanks of songs with words. We had no intentional requests. We had lots of tantrums. You saw he has 2 balls in his hand? You would think there's the motivating toy. Aha, I got it. Just let me get one of those balls and he'll ask for it. Wrong, ding dong. Tantrums to the point where Ted and I had to leave the room. Because for Anthony, ignoring him, having a tantrum, didn't mean just not look at him and not give him an opportunity to request. It meant stand up, take the toy, and leave the room. At one point, we had to turn the trampoline over because he figured out he could get on it for himself, right?
Headbang.
Oh, and head banging. Oh my goodness. Does he head bang anymore?
Nope.
Does he tantrum when you take the balls
He
away?
doesn't tantrum anymore.
I know. Does he have to have 2 balls in his hands all the time anymore?
Not 2 balls, but he likes to
Something.
have something, but
Yeah.
not as bad as what it
Yeah.
was.
We came a long, long way with Anthony. I learned a lot about PRT. I learned a lot about Anthony. I learned about the art and the science of this. Those videos are from the summer of 2011. It was this process that inspired me to go to Arizona and figure out how to do this more at early intervention services in York Region. You can Google the Kegels, you can Google PRT and see video of people doing it on the net. You can talk to, there's half a dozen of you in this room who have been through the group. You can talk to me, you can talk to Claire, you can talk to Robin and Ted. If you are a client of early intervention services with a kid that fits the category, talk to your EI about participating in the group. If you're not, and it's still something you'd like to do or explore, I need to know about that so we can figure out how else to use this within our practice.